Welcome to this explainer. Today we're exploring a massive, kind of hidden engine behind the booming African tech scene. Across the continent, we'll see just absolutely incredible innovation, driven by brilliant Black founders and visionary investors. New companies are scaling rapidly, they're raising serious capital, and they're literally transforming whole industries. But behind closed doors, as the stakes get higher and the money gets bigger, a absolutely crucial but often unspoken challenge emerges. We're going to break this whole thing down in very simple terms, so that by the end of this, you'll understand exactly how the most successful ventures protect themselves.
Africa's startup ecosystem is booming. But what happens when founders fight? Right? It's harsh reality of business. When successful, highly driven Black-led startups face massive internal disputes, the consequences can be devastating. We're talking about explosive disagreements that threaten to tear a company apart right as it's really taking off. Section 1. The Startup Survival Problem. Why great companies die in court.
Okay, let's dive into this. These conflicts are unfortunately incredibly common. First, you have founder disagreements, intense arguments over who owns what percentage of the equity or who actually gets to make the final decisions. Then you've got investor disputes. This is where venture capital firms, the groups providing the large-scale funding, and angel networks start arguing over shareholder rights or breaches of investment agreements. Add in intellectual property conflicts over who actually owns the tech, and cross-border partnership breakdowns as these startups expand into new countries. And wow, these are highly emotional, extremely complex conflicts. And honestly, if they aren't resolved quickly, the startup simply fails. Let's look at how this builds into a systemic issue.
To put this into perspective, think of the traditional court system like a massive, agonizing traffic jam. Commercial disputes in public court can take literally years to resolve. It's wildly expensive, often costing way more than the dispute itself. And the worst part? Everything is completely public, which totally wrecks reputations. Now, compare that to the reality for startups. They need speed to keep growing. They have limited funds that really should be going toward building their product, and they absolutely require strict privacy to maintain investor confidence. So the crucial takeaway here is this: sending an agile, fast-moving African startup into the slow, expensive traditional court system, it's basically a death sentence for the business. They desperately need a VIP lane.
Section 2. What is private arbitration? The fast, private VIP lane. So here is the absolute simplest way to understand our hero solution. Private arbitration is simply agreeing to let a trusted, neutral expert decide your fight quickly and privately, instead of spending years rotting in a public court. Imagine two co-founders are fighting over equity. Instead of suing each other in a public forum, they bring their case to a highly respected Black legal expert who actually specializes in startups. This expert hears both sides in total privacy, makes a completely fair decision, and here's the kicker, that decision is legally binding. The argument is settled, no way around it, and the business can immediately get back to growing.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we completely bypass that legal traffic jam. The process itself plays out in 3 incredibly straightforward steps. Step 1, the founders, the investors, and the partners all agree to use the arbitration service in their contracts before any problems ever arise. Step 2, when a dispute inevitably happens, highly trained arbitrators step in to hear both sides. Step 3, a fast, legally binding decision is issued. Bam! It's that simple. Section 3, building the arbitration venture. Structuring a trusted institution. Now, to make this work securely in the real world, the source material breaks down a multi-venture structure. It's like a perfectly organized machine. First up is the holdco, or holding company. Think of this as the main vault. It owns and protects all the intellectual property, like trademarks and software, essentially safeguarding the founder's equity. Underneath that, you have the actual arbitration institution, which handles the core, day-to-day operations of hearing the cases and appointing the experts. Next to that is a legal tech company building the online dispute platform. This right here is your competitive edge. And finally, an education institute that trains founders and certifies arbitrators, which is absolutely vital for building long-term market trust. This entire structure balances governance, scalability, and risk management just perfectly.
What makes this whole setup so incredibly powerful is that it's a completely modern, tech-enabled business. Unlike, say, building a huge manufacturing plant, this requires low to medium capital and is strongly asset-light. It's built by brilliant Black legal tech developers utilizing AI-assisted case administration, virtual online hearings, and highly secured digital evidence sharing. The most valuable assets here aren't heavy machinery. They are the professional network, the cutting-edge technology, and the rock-solid reputation of the top-tier African legal talent leading the institution.
Section 4.
how this venture makes money, following the revenue.
Now, what's really interesting here is the business model itself. It is beautifully diversified. It features transactional income from case administration fees and arbitrator fees, which are paid every single time a dispute is filed. But you know the real magic? The real magic is in the recurring revenue. You have annual membership subscriptions from startups, from venture capital firms and accelerators. You've got ongoing subscriptions for the legal tech software plus fees from the training and certification courses. This brilliant balance between transactional and recurring revenue makes the whole business incredibly predictable and stable.
And because the tech platform is so scalable, the financial upside is just tremendous. Look, once the institutional reputation is established, you can take on way more cases and add more members without significantly increasing your operating costs. That means incredibly strong margins, it scales beautifully, it doesn't just resolve fights, it becomes a very attractive long-term dividend business, providing stable, predictable income. And down the road, well, the venture naturally becomes a prime target for a strategic merger or even a private equity buyout, where larger investment firms purchase the business for a massive payout.
Section 5. Scaling across Africa. Building continental commercial justice.
As you probably know, African startups are increasingly operating across borders, which means this institution absolutely must do the same. The master plan involves expanding into major startup hubs like Kenya, Ghana, Rwanda, and South Africa. And this venture benefits directly from the African Continental Free Trade Area, or ASCTA, a massive agreement that is rapidly making cross-border trade and investment so much easier. To make regional fundraising and expansion as smooth as possible, the holding company can be strategically structured in Mauritius, mostly for investor familiarity. Ultimately, this entire thing relies on powerful network effects, because as more startups, investors, and lawyers adopt this institution, the trust just compounds over time, and it naturally becomes the absolute default standard for commercial justice across Africa. Which brings us to our final big question. The gap in the market is completely proven, the demand is structurally sound, and the blueprint for a highly scalable, tech-enabled solution is sitting right here. So, who will step up to build and fund the future of Africa's trusted commercial justice institution? Where do you fit into this incredibly exciting emerging ecosystem? I really hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity about the legal engines that actually power innovation. If you found this as fascinating as I do, I highly encourage you to dive deeper, reach out to us, and explore how you can be a part of this incredible journey.